Welcome to the All Ambient podcast, where we dig into the creative process, hear untold stories, and explore the brilliant minds behind some of the finest ambient music out there. I'm your host, Mike Graff. I'm excited to be in this together with you. Let's get going. Again, welcome to the podcast, everyone. My name is Mike Graff, and I make music as Dear Gravity. It is amazing to be here together with you. I am really excited for you to get the chance to hear from Cephas Azariah today. But before we dig into that conversation, I, of course, want to say a big thank you to the premier music licensing site for all things ambient and cinematic music. Of course, I'm talking about All Ambient. If you're a creator that doesn't want to dig through an endless catalog of music that might not be the best fit, All Ambient is the perfect licensing site for you. All Ambient has expertly curated song bundles that are all designed around a unique theme to fit your film, video, or project perfectly. And there's no annual subscription fee either. You only pay for what you need. It is a great solution for your music licensing needs. Go check it out at all-ambient.com. That's all-ambient.com. If you stick around, we do have an exclusive promo code for our podcast listeners that we'll share in just a little bit. My guest today is none other than Cephas Azariah. Cephas has an incredible backstory, twisting and turning through a bunch of different lanes that have now led him not only to make incredible music in the ambient space amidst a wide variety of different musical avenues that he explores, but also has a real mindset approach to it that stems from his university degree in the relationship between theology and the arts. It's a really fascinating conversation. I think I need to go back and listen to it 2 or 3 more times to soak it all in. I am really glad that we got the chance to do this. Let's not wait any longer. Let's get right into the conversation with Cephas Azariah. I'm so excited today to get the chance to connect with Cephas Azariah. Cephas, welcome to the All Ambient podcast, man.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Doing so good. I'm really glad that we're getting to do this together, man. I really am.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, you don't get to have these types of conversations often. So this is the chance. And I think, I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, man. Well, and I know that there's a lot of people who are going to be encouraged and inspired and are going to love the conversation that we're going to have. But also selfishly, like, I'm with you. These conversations don't happen as often as perhaps any of us want. And I know that I'm really going to benefit from this. So selfishly, I'm with you. Yeah. I'm really glad that this is happening.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of thing I'd have with someone in a coffee shop, let's just go and talk about stuff we like.
Absolutely.
Ambient music and a few other bits and bobs and see where it takes us.
Amazing. I love it. Can't wait. Well, Cephas, we're going to explore a lot of territory. I'm really excited about it. But why don't we start from the beginning? I'd love to hear how you got started in music, if there was kind of an origin story, if you will. And one of the things that usually jogs a lot of people's memory is thinking back to what was one of the first times that maybe you heard a piece of music or you heard an instrument or something and you were just wowed by it, or you were like, man, I think I'm going to be spending quite a bit of my life in this music lane. Yeah. Tell me how you got started in the music world.
Nice. Yeah. So I actually got put on a piano when I was 4 years old by my parents, seemingly without much choice. But it was also a good opportunity to get away from the books and sort of like the textbooks of school. Since then, had sporadic sort of piano lessons, but there was always a keyboard at home that, I'd just be sat noodling around and mostly playing the beats that were in the keyboards, like the old Casios and stuff. Just trying to make as much noise as possible. Yeah. And then like music was a big part of my home growing up. Both my parents were sort of musically inclined. So there's always music playing like on the radio or on a cassette or a CD So definitely the earliest memory of the type of music that I remember was this Greek composer called Yanni.
Oh my goodness, let's go.
And I don't know what it was. Like we used to have like Yanni DVDs playing in the house, like in the evenings whilst we're having dinner, just on in the background. And I think it's just the emotion of that just, got hold of me. Obviously, didn't connect the dots that young, maybe, before I was 10 or 11 or 12 or something like that. I'd say that's like the earliest memory of really recognizing a piece of music and going, I like that, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
That's so cool.
But then I grew up in part of the world where pop punk was the go-to.
Yeah.
So yeah, grew up being a big Green Day fan and all of that type of Reliant K.
Oh my goodness. I saw Reliant K in concert. It was at a summer festival, but I saw them, I think maybe like 3 or 4 months before their debut album came out. And I was I was blown away. I was like,
oh my
you guys
goodness.
you got a long road ahead of you. This is just bonkers. Yeah.
Man, yeah. I'm so jealous because they never toured the UK.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't mean to rub it in.
So I think there was just that phase of music. So I think I was like fully into music around my teens, and I knew I wanted to do music, just didn't know how, like most people. And then I actually took quite a significant detour when I was about 15 and got into sport. So music went out the window, but I was still playing in church. Church was also a big part of my life growing up, and that's, when it comes to music, I'd say that was the space where I played the most music.
Yeah.
Also picked up some drum lessons while I was there, so played a bit of drums as well, which was good fun.
Yeah.
At some point the pendulum swung, and then I just played drums whilst having all this. Yeah,
it's a great lesson in rhythm and just how it all connects on that side of things.
Yeah, sure. I think you need that. Yeah.
Tell me about the sport. What did you get into? Were you a footballer, or what side of sports were you?
I played cricket.
Okay.
Which is
wow. Yeah.
Probably very sporadic in the US, but
a big
UK,
deal everywhere else.
Yeah. Just had some opportunities come up, and my dad was also big in sport. He played field hockey, and that was his thing. But then any opportunity my brother and I had to play sport in school and stuff. And then I think it's just opportunities coming our way through scouts and stuff like that. So took that quite seriously, managed to represent a good level. And then, like with anything, you get to a point and you try to sort of realize whether this is going to be a long-term thing or not.
Sure.
And so that happened, hit 18. I'm now applying for university, trying to figure out what I want to study, and took another turn. And I ended up studying automotive design.
Really?
Because I wanted to get into Formula One.
Bro, we're going to have a whole side conversation about that, because I am an avid Formula One guy myself, for sure. Oh, incredible. Man, I hope I don't side rail this entire conversation into the pinnacle of motorsport. But hey, anyway.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. Tell me more about that. Just what that journey looked like. This is fascinating. I love it.
I know, right? I even listened to myself talk. I'm like, man, there's been some left turns.
Quite a journey.
Yeah. Yeah. As well as being sort of lured into music and stuff growing up. I love drawing, and I drew cars a lot.
Yeah.
And my parents obviously took notice of that and sort of kept that in the background, thinking, oh, kid loves drawing cars.
Yeah.
So then I got edged in towards sort of maths and design and stuff in school, where you'd figure out sort of a lot of the mechanics of this random talent or craft that I've sort of happened to have.
Yeah.
And then so paid attention to that in school especially. And then when it came to spending 3 or 4 years studying a subject, I was like, oh, you know what? I love motorsport. I love cars and automotive things. Mm-hmm. So why not try and get into it? And so you kind of set a goal, and then you sort of work your way backwards to see how you could do that. But then I studied that for only 18 months at university.
Okay.
And this is part of my journey into music, but I didn't like how it was taught. So obviously there's a set curriculum, especially in the early years of any course, and you have to follow through. But there was something about the way it was taught that made me fall out of love with something.
Yeah.
From an education point of view. So
interesting.
And it sort of in conjunction with some stuff that was happening with my family at the time meant that I couldn't carry on studying. So I took a year out to figure out what I wanted to do. And I moved out of home at that point to another city, and then joined a function band, sort of dabbled a little bit playing in the weekends, got a part-time job. And a year later went and studied music at university, because I had sort of all the formal training and stuff in the background, private tutoring and sort of music theory and stuff like that. So they saw all of that. Obviously didn't do it in school very much, and then went and studied music. And then in my final year of music, I sort of majored in integrating theology and the arts.
Whoa, and just pause on that for a second, because I mean, that in and of itself, Man, we're going to have to start a series, man, where we're going to explore this theology and the arts. I mean, this is a whole lane that, I mean, there's so much to hit in this, but you and I need to hang out way more often is what I'm realizing through this conversation.
I'm so
This is
looking
just
forward
amazing.
to that.
But
I'm
okay,
ready.
so I cut you off though. Theology and the arts. Tell me more about that. Tell me more. Was that like an option that was presented to you and you're like, oh, cool, let me dig into that? Or was it more like there was just something tugging at you inside and you're like, I need to go find some way to get deeper into this? Or what did that look like?
So when a lot of stuff unraveled in the early years of my sort of higher education, and I knew that I needed to like take time out, I need to figure this out. And I got quite existential during that phase.
Yeah.
And there was a parallel depression that sank in. So a lot of like mental health related things it was new to me and starting to deal with and stuff. So for me, especially in those phases, I just found myself asking the big questions like, is there a God? Does God care? What's up with everything going on in the world? What's up with what's going on in my life?
Yeah.
You know, for all the prayer that we do and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a lot smoother and it wasn't. So, and then as an aspiring human with goals and ambitions, just a lot of that tended to clash. So I had those questions, but what I didn't do was sort of, you know, throw everything out and give up on everything. I just needed to find the next step. So study music, and there was an option to do a couple of theology modules along with that, which piqued my interest. So I studied subjects like the role of music in the church, Western specifically, and then dabbled a little bit in like Eastern traditions because you can't ignore them completely.
Of course,
and then got to the final year and there was options of a few things you could do, like an orchestral piece, or you can do like film score. I did the film module as well. Amazing. There was something specific for that, which was great. But one thing I really wanted to pay attention to was, okay, what's the role with like art and culture and theology and how's that? So I actually ended up doing like a spoken exam and just talked about the subject, and after doing some research on a particular subject and learning how to listen to a piece of music or look at a piece of art or stare at something or engage your senses with something through the lens of theology, and trying to make sense of theology through the arts and trying to make the sense of the arts through theology. And that was, I suppose, was like the end point of my education. And that was the last thing I studied.
Oh, which is so fascinating. And not only to study that and to, you know, to have a degree in that, but also to see all the multitude of opportunities in the arts, you know, in music, all the ways you've explored that since then, and how that study, I'm positive, has informed not only how you look at all the art around you, but also how you approach your own art and how it relates to, you know, to whatever end goal you're looking at on any project, whether it's an album or whether it's tied to picture. I know you have, you know, plenty of film scoring experience and all that, but what a great way to really kind of center your focus and to ensure that there's more to what you're delivering as an artist than just, okay, here's some sounds, here's some chords, here's a melody that, you know, like, hooray, there it is. But no, there's an actual depth to what you're presenting, and I think that's really special because, you're going the road less traveled, and I appreciate you modeling that for me and for all of us. Yeah, it's good. Cephas, cut to today. I know you are releasing some incredible music under your name, under Cephas Azariah, you know, in the streaming world and in the licensing world. Of course, your EP that came out on Slow Echo, Reserve, which I was just listening to it and was wowed by some of the depth in that. And I just, thank you for making such great music, such great art. But tell me a little bit more about what's going on in your world right now. Like, what is taking up your time? What projects are at hand, like, right now?
Nice. That's a great question, actually. I've just come on the back of having about a month off in May. So
which
I just
is
felt
so
like I
important
needed
to breathe.
Just need to take a step back. I'm really fortunate to be in a position where I can do that as well. I've just returned end of last week from the Highlands up in Scotland.
Oh, wow.
Wrote about an album's worth of music.
Amazing.
And so we stayed in a cabin, wrote some music, and I've come back and I'm like, why am I here and not there? I mean, I love where
The
I live.
struggle is
but
real. Yeah.
yeah, there's always a bigger, more beautiful mountain to look at somewhere else in the world. So, and then I'm working through a few collaborations with a couple of people, almost tailoring my genre of music to their voice. So it's been a slightly different journey working with singers, which I haven't really done before.
Yeah.
Or songwriters, I should say. So that's quite an exciting journey to be on, seeing how this genre of music can tailor with voice, maybe like the simpler song.
Yeah.
And exploring what that's like. So let's see what comes of it.
I love it. I can't wait to hear more.
Yeah. And then I do a bit of commercial work. So I'm working with an app called Glorify. May or may not have heard of it.
Yeah.
And they sort of do meditation spaces using scripture and create content for people to go on walks with like sonic experiences and stuff like that. Helping sort of rethink or refresh our relationship with meditation and scripture and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So they've got people that they work with, content creators or, filmmakers, to create these sort of in-app experiences, and then obviously work with a few guys that do sound to try and help elevate that experience. And sometimes the whole experience is focused on sound, so then you almost reverse the role a little bit. So then the sonic element takes the lead and you create this beautiful wash of sound. Could be piano based, could be synth based, something that's just kind of warm, a lot like what we hear on Slow Echo, and they attach sort of spoken meditations to it or scripture readings and things like that. So it's cool to be a part of that on some degree. So every now and then I'll get a little bit of work through them, and I'm always looking forward to contributing to spaces like that, because I think it actually helps a human be a human. So
absolutely, what an honor to be in that space. So honestly, I feel like we could go for hours right now, but I'm fascinated by the whole subject of theology and the arts. And I know, I mean, obviously this is something that you received a degree in. This is something that you spend a lot of your own, mental space in, and just your own spiritual space, your own emotional space. But I would love to hear, and for you to share with our listeners a little bit more about, gosh, I don't want to reduce it to a single sentence or anything like that, but just the idea of how those two things intersect, how theology and how the arts really do intersect, and maybe some very, not simple in the sense of it's easy to do, but simple in the sense of maybe there's very few steps involved for someone like me or a listener to take steps to be a little bit more mindful of the arts that they're listening to, or to be thinking through how those arts do tie to theology a little bit more. So yeah, just explore that world a little bit for me in whatever way you want to.
Yeah, this is I didn't expect to head in this direction in this level of detail, but thankfully, I've got years of thinking and down this rabbit hole. So
absolutely, man. And if we have to break this interview into like 6 parts because you're about to just hit an incredible lecture and we need to go at it that way, that's great too. So whatever you want to do.
My goodness. All right. I think one of the first things I'd say is you've got to pay attention to your senses. I think our senses are typically ignored because they're all things that happen automatically, whether we see stuff or we hear things or we taste things or whatever. We don't have to activate them in any way or shape or form. They're just ready to take in stimulus. So I think paying attention to what goes in and out through our senses, I think is a big part of this. Yeah. And when you slow that down and start paying attention to that, suddenly everything that you listen or see or say or hear and even touch becomes important. And you got to slow down enough. I'll cycle back to that in a little bit, but part of it's also the pace at which we live. Yeah. So coming out of having studied this and heading into the world of, I wanted to write music for picture and all of that type of stuff. And I started on this journey. I got myself a little part-time job, so there wasn't any financial pressure on what I was creating. Yeah. Specifically worked on projects with filmmakers or creators to help bring sort of someone's view on life, someone's theology on life. I think, filmmakers are theologians or musicians and artists are theologians just as much, because we're just trying to put out a revelation of, God and the universe that we have and give people a perspective. So I was just trying to marry that in the projects that I had. And thankfully I was surrounded by a few people who also thought the same way, which then helped bring together projects that I was proud of, which then ended up on a portfolio. And then you're not, ashamed about what's on your portfolio anymore. You've got work that you're happy to market and all that. So that's sort of like just linking a little bit of kind of the end of my education and then getting into work. But theology and the arts, I think, especially in music, I find it's so much easier and more weightier to translate ideologies about the divine and transcendence and our relationship to that through artistic things than to read out of a textbook and go, oh yeah, of course, all of that makes sense. Words on a page type thing. Nothing wrong with that, but I feel like there's the level of expression that you can get as a painter or as a carpenter or as a musician or anything along the spectrum, a dancer. You're able to convey so much more meaning and depth about the realities of life and also the mysteries of life. So I think for me, that's where the two come together. You've got ideas about things that are so out of reach, but still feel close and imminent.
Yeah.
And then you have tools in your hands that are so closely connected to our senses that we're then able to describe these ideologies and these beliefs or our spiritual journeys and into things that people can listen to or see or experience. Yeah. I think that's that in a nutshell. I'd also say that cycling back to the slowness of things, you can't do that in a hurry. Everything that I've sort of just described. You've got to do life slow enough to see and hear and taste and experience things to then be able to process that properly, to then be able to output that in a way that somewhat makes sense. Say you're writing a piece of music and the theme is peace. You could just draw out a drone sound for 6 minutes and sure that can bring peace, but I think peace, if you look back in the last 6 months of your own life, you can see moments in life where you needed to actually go and slow down and find that peace. And then you bring that experience into the music and suddenly it's not just a drone for 6 minutes. There's nuances in the music, whether it's through a bass synth or whether it's through a guitar or a couple of piano melodies insinuating on some of the emotions that you faced. And suddenly the music is alive. If you're working with other musicians, then there's other people's experiences of peace coming into that track and suddenly you're having this conversation about peace through musical instruments. So I think that's where theology and art meet. It's our experience of what's going on in life. There's an overarching connection that we're bringing together through music. What I realized even while talking is it's really easy for all of this to sound like it's very abstract. So hence I tried to use like an experience of writing a piece of music and how you can actually make it very lifelike if you're using all those instruments and things like that.
Well, and I think that's kind of the beauty of it, Cephas, is that, it is abstract in a sense where we can't necessarily touch or physically taste the relationship between the two or how, this theology, my belief system, where I'm at spiritually connects with my everyday life. But that doesn't mean it's any less real, right?
Yeah.
And so even if it is abstract, it's still very real. And I so resonate with you on everything you just said, but something that jumped out at me was just the the speed of life and the just what our culture in a lot of senses, and I'm over here in the USA where it's maybe even faster than just about anywhere else, but there's just this go see how many things you can accomplish in a day. I mean, I'm even guilty of listening to podcasts on 1 1/4 speed or 1 1/2 speed because hey, I can knock out a 60-minute podcast in 40 minutes. Oh, that's great. In theory, you save 20 minutes, but did I just sacrifice some of the actual sinking in? It's like the podcast version of skimming a book. You may technically flip all the pages, and get from cover to cover faster, but have you really had the chance to marinate in the point or marinate in the truth? And I think so what jumped out at me in what you were saying is that there really just isn't a shortcut to connecting with your heart and your spirit on where you're at and where the truth is at. And you can't hit 1 1/2 speed on, your spiritual journey in a sense. It is a slow process, but slow in the sense where I know that even just talking with you right now, the speed of kind of how we were designed to live is in a lot of senses antithetical to a lot of what we're being told by the world to do. And, and I get the business of all that. And hey, the more eyes you have on this phone or on this app, the more marketing money. And although like I get the, the money side of it, but if we don't take time to connect to the real speed of how we were created, I do think that we're losing something of the human experience for sure. And so I love you pressing into not just how our belief system is tied to the arts, but also just like at what rate, what's the tempo of that in life. And I think that's something for all of us to consider and to chew through a little bit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think if you can reduce stimulus as much as possible in life, that'll help a lot. Feels strange to say, but this is the honest truth. I barely watch like shows on TV, Netflix, all that type of stuff, because I save my visual stimulus for things that I want to be inspired by, which is looking at a mountain or staring at a lake, clear waters, like things like that. And my wife, I think there's even with music, like I listen to music once a week, just on Mondays actively. I can passively listen to stuff, if people got stuff on in the background. Yeah. If I'm in a car with someone else, I'm not going to tell them, hey, hold on, don't put music on. I only actively listen to music on a Monday to sit and, maybe one of my favorite artists has put out some new music. I'll put that on, enjoy it. And then leave that experience there and try and save that stimulus for when I don't know, turn on my synth and I want the sounds of the synth to excite me. I don't want my ears to be saturated with stuff that I've heard throughout the week.
That's a really interesting perspective. And relating back to, what you said earlier about being up in the Scottish Highlands and writing, a whole album worth of material, for you to have like prepped your creative self, your spiritual self to receive, the Highland Mountains, like just the rolling hills, like to receive that in the way that really I think a lot of our eyes were intended to receive it is such a gift. And, I'm definitely one who I love traveling. If not for anything else besides just the new stimuli, right? Like I get to see new things. I get to experience, new things. And we love our home. We love our town, our city. But it's also the thing that we see every day. And so it is exciting as an artist to see new things. But like you said, to put yourself in a bit of that mental, emotional, spiritual state where you are receiving the new stimuli in a way that is unencumbered by anything else, or it isn't drowned out or watered down by all the stimuli all the time, all the different things you could be consuming. I think that's, that brings an even purer, perhaps I could say, more artistically vivid opportunity for you to create to the prime of your ability, for sure.
Man, yeah, that's well put. You've summed up really well. Yeah.
Not that you have to do any spoilers, but I cannot wait to hear what comes from the Scottish Highlands recording sessions, for sure. It's going to be great. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Cephas, I feel like we could talk for hours. I want to make sure that this is not the last time that we connect. This is just a really special thing. But we are about to head into the all ambient lightning round. Are you ready for this? We're doing the lightning round. Here we go. Just some quick fire questions. Just go with whatever comes right off the top of your head. And we're going to have some fun. Cephas, what are you geeking out about right now? Whether it's some music you've been listening to or a piece of gear, an instrument, a plugin or something. What are you geeking out about right now?
I just got Behringer's remake of the Korg Monopoly.
Oh, you did.
So I've been swimming in that recently, just trying to figure out how all these oscillators work and stuff. So there you go. That's
Was that part of your trip to the Highlands? Did you bring it with you?
Yes. Yeah, it's incredible. I absolutely love it.
That's so cool. I love it. Cephas, what's one weird thing about you that people might not know?
Well, besides only listening to music on Mondays.
I love that one. That's a really unique one. It is.
I don't like things rattling in the car when I'm driving.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's like a bottle in a holder or something like in a compartment that's like making noise, it'd drive me insane.
That's really funny you say that because we are in cleaning mode around our house and my trunk, well, it's not a trunk, but like my, the back end of my vehicle is now full of a bunch of stuff that needs to go to the local donation center, but a big portion of it is sporting equipment. So my sons are both both avid basketball players,
Nice.
and the amount of basketballs at our house grows exponentially. And so it's like, guys, I'm not telling you don't get to own basketballs, but we don't need 45 basketballs at our house. So I'm with you though, because I haven't had time to drop them off yet. And so every time I hit the brakes or turn right or whatever, all of a sudden, like I hear there's a bunch of rattling in the back of my car, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go change that. That's small world. I love it.
That's so real, man. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, you can take this as controversial as you'd like, or you can stay. You can do whatever you want with this one. But Cephas, what is something that you believe or that you think that almost nobody agrees with you on?
Oh, this is going to be so nuts. At the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang and the voice of God could have been the same thing. Yep. That's
bingo.
I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. And it's funny how that thought just doesn't compute for either side of that debate or that conversation. Yeah. That just could not make sense to so many people. Yeah.
I'm just fully open to it. Yeah. But I think it doesn't strike chords with too many people. Yeah. which is fine. I'm not too bothered.
That's so great. It's amazing. Okay, we'll continue down this lightning round. Cephas, what would you tell the beginning musician version of yourself? So if you were to go back like 10 years, maybe even further, 15 years, 20 years, or maybe you have multiple answers for different years, but what would you tell the beginning musician version of yourself?
Okay, I'll tell him two things. Be in it long enough for it to work out. So whatever it is that you wanted to do in music, just stay with it. Don't give it up during the early sort of phase of it. Yeah. And then the second thing is, I've already mentioned it earlier in the podcast, is remove the financial pressure of your creative ability and get another job, find another interest that you can work in whilst you're figuring out how to make a living through music.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice, not just for the former version of yourself, but also through experience for you to offer that wisdom to people who are looking to perhaps follow in your footsteps or who are inspired by, what you've done and what you've, just the mindset and the heart behind all that you do, for them to avoid. I think of all the lessons I've learned that I would love for people to avoid some of the same obstacles that I've had to jump over. But that's golden. Thank you for sharing that, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one final lightning round question for you, and it's a little bit of a left-hand turn, but it's a fun one. If you, Cephas, could continue making music, but you were absolutely forced to abandon the genres you are currently in, what would you create? And I know I heard you reference a couple genres earlier, so I don't know if we're going to come full circle, but you get to keep making music, but you had to bail out of what you are currently in. What would you create?
Okay, I've got two answers, strangely enough. I would love to make music like Periphery. They make, what's the genre of music? It's like metal maths music.
Like prog rock, prog metal?
Yeah, something like that, but it's super melodic.
Yeah.
I think, is it melodic metal? I think that's what it is. All instrumental music, but
Periphery.
I'm sure their time signatures, Periphery, their time signatures change like every other bar or something like that.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely mental. Pliny is another band as well.
Pliny. I just had, and this, I don't spend enough time in the genre, but I just had somebody turn me on to Pliny, or however you pronounce him. But yeah,
I'd love to make that kind of music.
Who's incredible and super talented. And I come to find out like 2 days after I got turned on to it that he was just like 20 minutes down the street from me playing a local venue, and I missed an opportunity to take that in. But he's incredible. His whole band is just bonkers.
Yeah. So I think that would be it. And then if that doesn't work out, something in the melodic house.
Yeah.
Sort of genre, that would be a thing, because like the parent labels to the people that I work with, they're big melodic house labels. So I've been actually sort of learning to enjoy that genre of music a bit.
Yeah, man. Well, Cephas, you've been so gracious with your time. I am just deeply encouraged by everything that you've shared, and I feel like we've covered so much ground. This might be the sort of episode where people go back and listen to it 2 or 3 times just to soak it all in. But thank you for sharing not just your time, but your wisdom wisdom and really the heart behind the art that you bring into this world. I certainly hope it's not the last time that we get to connect. I just thank you for sharing with us, and looking forward to everything that is to come with all the projects that you put your hands to, not just in the worlds where our stuff collides together, but everything that you're up to. Just really excited for you and for what you're bringing to the world. So thanks for all that, and thanks for being on the All Ambient podcast, man.
Cheers. Thank you so much, Mike. Absolutely love chatting to you.
Thank you again so much for listening to the All Ambient podcast. Music throughout today's episode was from Cephas Azariah's EP release called Reserve. And you can find all of this music along with a bunch of other incredible songs, bundles, and other resources from an amazing group of composers and producers at all-ambient.com. And be sure to use the promo code podcast25. That's podcast25. And you'll get 25% off of any product at all-ambient.com. It's a great opportunity to save even more on an incredible resource for your next film, video, or project. Don't wait for another second. Head over to allambient.com and use promo code podcast25. Again, that's podcast25 to get 25% off of your next purchase. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so you can catch every conversation we have with all these incredible people who share the same passion. I'm looking forward to the next time. I hope that you are too. Can't wait to see you then. And until then, have an incredible day. Here's hoping that this music and the heart behind it makes your day and life that much better. See you next time.